What do you see the role of CFO, how it has evolved over the years, and how are you looking to add value to our customers?
My background is, both in industry as a finance leader, as well as, doing finance transformations for management consulting. And in both of those roles, I've really seen the role of the CFO, continue to evolve. And where it's evolving is sort of this back office, perception of we're closing the books and putting out the reports to, really a business partner delivering insights and decision support. And, because of this, the office of the CFO is really being tasked with being able to better leverage data for the enterprise to, drive value and empower the business with real-time insights. One of the things I hear most often is, I'm, my leadership is blind running the business. We report after the fact, but they don't really have any way to run the business. And so, in addition to that, as digital finance transformation has really, become prevalent at companies and, they're looking at their strategy to do it. The CFO role being that objective organization within the enterprise has really been tasked with, either being the primary lead for digital finance transformation or a close second and being heavily involved in digital finance transformation.
Very good. Stephen, would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, I would say that trickles down to the rest of the organization as well, right? That, it depends on the kind of organization that it is too, right? So is it the kind of enterprise where those goals are open and transparent and the rest of the finance teams and operations teams supporting that function really act in alignment to those goals? Or is it still kind of stuck in the back office closing the books, and implementing a lot of technology solutions? I'll work with a lot of folks who can't find time to spend time on the implementation because they spend so much time just doing some of those back office tasks that Mike hit on. So how are you kind of selecting tools that enable finance teams to act in alignment with the objectives of the CFO?
What are your thoughts, Mike?
I think that, with finance teams, in terms of, one of the most important things is to really, recognize where you're at. And I think that there's a lot of buzzwords out there. You hear, predictive analytics, advanced analytics, you hear machine learning, you hear so many things in the spectrum related to, transformation that I think it gets lost on some finance teams that are literally just trying to stay afloat in terms of what they're doing. And so, part of their challenge is, to sort of get out of the weeds and really understand where they're at and where they want to go. Because to them, it's, if I could just have something to automate a little bit of my day, then, that would be rewarding to me. But, oftentimes when it's siloed like that, you sort of lack that vision of what do we really want from our finance organization? How are we going to get to that evolution that is being expected of us by our business, and the partners that we support? And so I think that, that's something that, each organization really has to sort of step back and take a look at.
I think the biggest source of frustration I see when working with people on finance teams, FP&A managers, FP&A analysts, directors of finance, these kinds of roles, is that they feel like so much of their role has just become maintenance around some of the systems that, they need more IT involvement, or they're not able to enact the changes that really kind of align with the goals of the CFO that Mike is hitting on.
Yeah, and just to add to that, with transformation, and I think with the digital age, things are just moving so fast. And so, depending on, what system you're using, or if you're using Excel, I think things, move, there's reorganizations, there's, M&A events that occur, and that literally can paralyze a finance organization. If you change your master data because of an acquisition or you do something, significant to the way your organization's structured and how you support that organization, you can very quickly render, your finance application or what you're using for your planning obsolete very quickly. And so, what we see oftentimes is, IT gets affected by that because, they have to change everything. So, where the changing of the finance system or, application falls on that spectrum could be very low. And so what happens is, I can't do my job on the current system. So you gravitate towards Excel, you get comfortable in Excel, you're just trying to keep the lights on, report the business, do what you can. And you may be, 50th in the queue to get something done. And in the meantime, while you're 50th in the queue, there may be another, change to the business because everything's moving so fast. So, there's a pretty clear root cause of, in a lot of organizations of how this happens. And then they're just sort of, chasing their tail to some degree to get back to what they figured was normal at one point in time.